Families are a beautiful thing. It's a gift from God that we're placed in families. We have a father and a mother and grandparents and hopefully brothers and sisters. It is true that there are some really serious difficulty in some families. Maybe hardships, abuse, cruelty, great harm, but those things should be the exception rather than the rule. And I pray for God's mercy and help to help those individuals that have been hurt in that way. But right now we're going to be talking about standard families where there are ups and downs with it. And something that has really been weighing on my heart. And it's all the contention that we're seeing and people being driven or choosing to withdraw from their families for reasons that are not wise. So I've done some thinking and I have found some resources from some wonderful people, and I'm going to use a lot of their words and their help to guide us in this conversation. We're at a wonderful time of the year, and it's a time that families often come together. Sometimes the gatherings go well and sometimes they don't go well. But they could go well if we would remember certain things. I'm going to start out by sharing some words from a talk by Russell M. Nelson, who's now the prophet of the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints and was an apostle at the time he gave this talk, which is named The Canker of Contention. So here are some of the things that he talked about. He started by telling that he had gone with some other people over to the Holy Land. And he was so distressed to see all the contention that was occurring. And he said, after safely enduring this experience, I thought of the irony of it all. Here in the land made holy by the Prince of Peace, contention has existed almost continually from that day to this. And it's contention of a family that goes back to Abraham and the contention that happened between two brothers that continues to this day. He reminded us of what the Savior said, "Peace I leave with you, my peace I give unto you, not as the world giveth, give I unto you." But peace isn't necessarily political. Christ's peace is personal, but that spirit of peace is driven away by contention. Contention doesn't usually begin as strife between countries. More often, it starts with an individual. For we could contend within ourselves over simple matters of right and wrong. From there, contention can affect families, neighborhoods, and nations like a spreading sore. M. Cutts said this about it: "Quarrel not at all. No man resolved to make the most of himself can spare time for personal contention. Better give your path to a dog than be bitten by him." The sad thing is that contention is now becoming a way of life. We see it in the classroom, in the homes, in the media, in the political world, at work. We just see all kinds of contention. And social media. Social media has opened such great things. My ability to talk to you about this very important subject is because YouTube, which is a social media source. But unfortunately, on social media, what happens is that people who are contentious make videos about their contention, full of complaints, and they keep going because they get a lot of views, because other people who are also contentious are attracted to those videos, and it becomes an echo chamber. And sometimes maybe a child has been hurt by their parents, so they're upset at their parents, and they go out and they find sources on TikTok and Instagram and Reddit, looking for people who have also been harmed by their parents. Sometimes this harm is great, and we regret that, and we feel sad for those people who've truly been harmed in a great way. But so very often, the disagreements or the things that have happened are just a natural part of life. Children very often don't like the things their parents have said and done, and they're unforgiving. They don't look and see, well, my parents are not perfect. They are actually doing better than their parents because they have learned from their parents, and so on and so on. But their parents were basically good people who were trying really hard, and so are my parents. Basically good people who are trying very hard. How much better would it be for me and for our family relationships if I gave my parents a break? If I forgave them, if I released that pain and anger and maybe had a very calm, reasonable talk with their parents and share their feelings, listen to their parents as well, because they might learn a lot about what their parents are going through and how hard they were trying and that they regret hurting their child. And you can end up having really good conversations instead of just being angry and going out on social media and finding people who also are angry and then finding themselves getting more and more and more angry, often to a completely unreasonable level, and making these hard decisions that I can't be around my parents because we don't agree on this thing, which in the big scheme of life isn't that important and is going to change. It's going to go in and out, in and out, in and out. And parents will do the same thing. They'll go out on social media and look for people who've had what they consider really rebellious, terrible children, and children who've done really cruel things. And instead of looking for ways to improve that and calm it down and show their children that they love them, they start to feel justified in cutting their children off and being angry and believing it's so unfair, and just feel this true spirit of contention building up in them. And it absolutely can wreck families. I think social media is responsible for many, many families breaking up. Before social media, in my own experience, yes, there were things that my grandmother said to me occasionally, but I loved her dearly. And my mother, she occasionally said things that I didn't agree with or that were even hurtful, but I knew that she only wanted the best for me and she was trying to help me. And she forgave me for all the silly things I did. Like one time when I was in 7th grade, we were at church and she and this other lady and I were sitting on this couch. And they started talking about something. And there I was in my 12-year-old grandness. And I started getting after my mother about something and correcting her and feeling like I was actually a little bit better than her. So foolish. My mother could have been so angry with me. Later she told me, that was quite rude. You should have talked to me that way, and I knew it's true. And I've regretted that so many times, and I've apologized to her many times about that, but she said, well, you were young and you were foolish. And I hope you'll forgive me for the mistakes I made, because I'm just like you. I'm learning as I go along how wise my mother was. And instead of holding that grudge against me and bringing it up for years, she let that go. She forgave me. President Nelson points out that the family's been under attack since Adam and Eve. Satan, what did he do? He convinced one brother to kill another brother, to cause the sense of jealousy and disagreement and saying, well, God accepts him more and that's not fair. And that's how long Satan has been doing that, clear from the beginning. And when we let him do that to our family, we're listening to him. Contention is not from God. If we have different opinions politically, or how we view life in anything, and we let those differences turn into contention and criticism and calling each other names and being unforgiving and doing terrible things. That is not from God. That's not a righteous thing. Even if you think they should not have voted for this person because he's awful, he's terrible, and I just can't vote for anybody who would vote for this person, or the other way. They're just crazy. Why are they saying they're just so deceived and I can't be around anybody who'd be so deceived by that person? And they let that break up the family. It's so silly with politics in particular because there's constant changeover, back and forth, and then we're just tossed by the wind because of it. Oh, don't let it break up your family. Just don't talk about politics. You can go be around your family and you can talk about the good times you had. And if you go and somebody starts talking about politics, here's a trick I learned. Because my mother sometimes would say things to me that she probably shouldn't have been saying. I just changed the subject. And if she didn't get the hint, I would just get up and walk into another room. Over the years, she got the hint that if I didn't like the discussion, I was going to try to change it. It was her clue. She learned enough that the last couple times I had to give up, she knew that she had done the wrong thing. And she actually kind of chased after me and said, "Oh, please forgive me. Please forgive me. I won't do that again." If your loved one doesn't get the clue, just kind of have a plan of what you're going to do and who you're going to talk to when you go there. Don't let them goad you. Don't let them control you. You can just act like it's, something that's floated over your head and you didn't even hear. You don't have the choice of what they say, but you do have the choice of how you respond. President Nelson says, to begin, show compassion and concern for others. Control the tongue, the pen, and the word processor, or the computer, or your cell phone. Whenever tempted to dispute, remember this proverb. He that is void of wisdom despiseth his neighbor, but a man of understanding holdeth his peace. That's Proverbs 11, verse 12, and it's the King James Version, which basically means, if you're not wise, you despise your neighbor or your family or someone in your life. But if you're an understanding, wise person, you're going to learn when you just hold your peace and not say anything. Philippians 2:3 says, bridle or hold back the passion to speak or write contentiously for personal gain or glory. The Apostle Paul counseled in Philippians, let nothing be done through strife or vainglory, but in lowliness of mind, let each esteem the other better than themselves. So often people will do these contentious things or say these contentious things or make these little videos or make this post because they want attention and they want to become popular, or they think they sound smart, or they want to be smarter than their loved one they think is doing something stupid. And if I try to straighten them out, I'm demonstrating that I'm smarter. But Paul said, it's better for us to be humble and to consider the other person worthwhile and somebody we can learn from and listen to with understanding. And then another thing that is said very often, you can disagree without being disagreeable. So you really don't have to agree or believe everything that your family members or the people in your neighborhood or the people you work with. You just don't have to believe the same things. You don't have to agree with them. But you don't have to be disagreeable about it. Jesus said, blessed are the peacemakers, for they shall be called the children of God. Have you ever heard that song, Let There Be Peace on Earth? That was a song that was really popular in the 70s and the 60s, and I remember singing that. I used to be a real singer. I had a degree in voice from college, and so I sang all the time. And I don't know if I can sing this very well right now. I've kind of lost my voice. First words in the song are, let there be peace on earth, and let it begin with me. There's a really great article named 10 Ways to Cope with Difficult Relatives During the Holidays, which is on scripts.org. I'll put a link to it in the description. But these 10 ways are: adjust your attitude, have realistic expectations. You can't expect that you will go there and your family member will have dramatically changed, or that you can say some marvelous smart thing that will make them change. Be realistic about what can happen. Keep potentially upsetting topics off limits. We actually have that limit in our family. When we are all together, we don't talk about politics. If we're with like-minded people, then we go ahead and do that. But when we're generally together, we have a hard and fast rule: we don't talk about politics, because we have differing opinions that are very strong in our household. And we have chosen love over trying to convince other people how wrong they are. Accept that the only thing you control is your reaction. Don't drink too much. Get active, practice gratitude, and practice tolerance. Christine Carter said, rather than simply listening to a family member so that you're able to counter what the person says, try to listen for the sake of understanding. Where is he or she coming from? That doesn't mean you need to agree. Just that you're showing a person a basic level of respect. Also, a good piece of advice is to prepare your responses in advance. So before you even go, you kind of decide, well, if this topic comes up, I am going to divert this way. You could say, I really don't want to talk about this, but did you taste that wonderful Jell-O that Aunt May made? Or, I really don't want to talk about that. Do you remember the time when we were kids and we opened the presents before Christmas and Mom didn't know about it? You have some alternatives that can just demonstrate that you really don't want to have an argument about it. You're not giving up your sense of what's right and wrong to do this. You are just refusing to get caught in contention and to harm family relationships. Also, another piece of advice was, before you go, if you know there are going to be certain people who have a habit of saying the wrong thing just about all kinds of things, or things that bother you, you can prepare yourself by going back and remembering good times you had with that person and thinking of good qualities they have. And so when you go in there, you won't be all ready for a fight, all ready for them to offend you. You'll be remembering, this is a worthwhile person and I do love them. And it will make it so much easier for the things that they say to kind of go over your head, and you can think, oh, there he goes. Bill just doesn't even realize what he's doing, because Bill probably doesn't realize exactly what he's doing. And Alicia Boker, who is a therapist, she has an article on choosing therapy, and she says this: we are not going to change people, and it is not our job to do so. Instead, you can accept that your family member is difficult or challenging for a variety of reasons, and stick to minimal interactions, neutral responses, and keep it on the surface level. If you do not feed the fire or give them fuel, then, while boring, the interactions will be kept to a more tolerable and manageable place. Prepare ahead of time by coming up with some elevator-type topics, responses, and pitches. Take breaks from them when needed. Like I said, you can get up and excuse yourself, go to the restroom, go to another room, and start up a conversation with someone else. What if you have a family member that has chosen to not be around the family because they are so upset by how people voted? They are angry about something that someone said last time, and they haven't got to a place where they're able to forgive. And again, I'm talking about kind of normal family disagreements. I'm not talking about plain old high-level abuse that anyone would agree is abusive. But so often, things that we think are wrong or even rise to a level of abuse really aren't when you step back and think it through. Sometimes we come back with, when we're really honest with ourselves, I'm really kind of prideful. Maybe I'm a little too sensitive. Maybe I am too sensitive. Maybe that was something that a 17-year-old girl couldn't manage, but a 47-year-old woman who's had a lot of experience in life should be able to go, well, okay. But if you have someone who's in that kind of mindset, that they choose not to be around the family, or they're unable to be around the family, there's some things you can do to let them know that you love them. Send them a text to say, we really miss you. Send them a thoughtful message with a card or letter, and just say something simple like, we're thinking of you at Christmas and hope you're doing well. You can share a small gesture, sometimes a small gift like some cookies or a photo. Just lets them know you really do still love them. Respect their space. You could say something like, we'd love to see you if you ever feel up to it, but no pressure. Send a funny family photo or invite them to participate in a virtual toast. It's just a small way to stay connected. And remember, reaching out doesn't guarantee a change right away, but it plants a seed of love and connection that can grow over time. So the holidays aren't perfection. Every get-together is not going to be a perfect experience. There are probably going to be things that go wrong. It's a time to practice connection and to remember that we're imperfect people who are blessed to know other people who do generally care about us, and just to learn from them, learn to love more, learn to be forgiving, learn to be happy, and to remember the words of Jesus Christ. The most important things, and he said, the number one commandment is to love God with all our heart, mind, and mind. And the second one, and to love our neighbors as ourselves. One time Peter asked him, how many times do we need to forgive? 7? And Jesus said, no, 70 times 70, which is a huge number. Based on how they really talked about numbers at that period of time, he was basically saying, you just need to keep forgiving and keep forgiving and keep forgiving. This does not mean you need to put yourself in harm's way, but you need to ask yourself, is this really an instance when it would be better if I forgive? As I said, it doesn't change that person, but it will change yourself and make you a better person if you're able to forgive and seek these wonderful family and friendships that can add to our life and help us to grow to be better people. Thank you so much for listening to this. I hope it was helpful and will inspire you to really seek out and enjoy good relationships with others. I hope you have a wonderful holiday season. If you're seeing this later, I hope you have a great life. And I'll talk to you again. Bye.